This is ChannelPro Weekly, episode 268, with guest Angela Hogaboom from Cyber Compliance Group. Recorded Monday, July 15th, 2024. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 268. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor for the ChannelPro Network here, and your host of this fine show for folks out there like you that are the IT solution providers, the MSPs, the virtual CIOs, all the folks that keep technology solutions and other things running in other businesses and keeping them safe from cyber threats and all of those things. If that sounds like you, then you're in the right place, and we're glad that you are here joining us because we have an awesome guest coming on the show this week. I'm very excited to have her back. She's been on before. She is the principal consultant at Cyber Compliance Group. She has over a decade of IT and cybersecurity experience. She's helped hundreds of SMBs achieve compliance with CMMC, the NYCR 500, and other frameworks. And she's aided MSPs and channel partners in producing security services and productizing security services, I should say. Please welcome the one, the only, the fantastic Angela Hogaboom. Welcome, Angela.
Hi, thanks, Matt.
It's great to have you back. It's been a while. How you been?
Good. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm so excited that you're back on with us here in our kind of new format. It's been a while. You were on last with us when we were kind of doing our long form show, but this is now the new compact and condensed and quick, fast action in your face ChannelPro Weekly. So we're really excited to have you here. But in case anybody didn't catch one of those older episodes that you were on, please tell us a little bit more about you and a little bit more about Cyber Compliance Group.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I am sort of a jack of all trades when it comes to IT and cybersecurity. I have a lot of certifications and, like you mentioned, quite a bit of experience in the compliance realm and helping to secure businesses through things like compliance and risk assessment and policies, and also helping MSPs to productize those kinds of services so that they can layer them in and provide more robust security for their clients.
We're going to dive in a little bit more about the focus and how that helps with that. But you've also, I know, personally gone on another journey. You've just completed a degree.
Yeah, so I just finished my degree in cybersecurity and information assurance, mostly because, that was really a COVID project for me. And so for the last 3.5 years, I've been working on that. And that was really in an effort to fill in the gaps, the knowledge gaps that I had around the technical side of security, and to kind of learn the things that I just didn't know, but I've always been intrigued in. So with that came, some added experience on the IT side in networking, on the security side in programming with Linux programming, pen testing, and then also, analysis and cloud security. So it was really something that helped me round out my knowledge to be able to address my specialty areas from any different angle. And it's really gone a long way and been very helpful in that effort.
So you started that during COVID. Well, you were just obviously bored, and you're like, I'm going to go get a degree today, right?
It was actually a bet.
Really? It was a bet?
Sort of a bet with my ex-husband. I thought I wanted to go back to school, and he said, if you can get your Security Plus, you can go to school. And so I did. I got my Security Plus in about 3 months. And that really just solidified the desire to go, because I had been studying the privacy regulations and a number of different security facets at that point for quite a long time. I have been in compliance. I think I did my first data center audit assistance back in 2011, really because nobody else, the CISO didn't have anybody else who put their hand up and said, I'll read the contracts or I'll write the job descriptions. And I geek out on those things. So yeah, it's been quite a long journey, and now I have just finished that piece of it. And that's really helpful in getting my company started and continuing to offer the level of service that I actually have been offering for a long time to a number of clients.
And so did you win the bet? That's the important part.
I did. I got my degree.
So you won the bet.
School a couple months
and
later,
that's translating to some new business ventures for you, right? Are you able to talk about some of those things?
Yes. So Cyber Compliance Group is my new business venture, and that is a what I like to call a sensory-oriented security firm. So rather than the focus being so much on the technology and the managed services of the technology, it's those sensory aspects of governance, risk, and compliance. It's policies and procedures, true risk assessment, and then building controls for companies, regardless of their size, that will help keep them safeguarded from both the cyber threats and the regulatory repercussions and consequences that they may be having to deal with now.
And so, what are some of the other ways that you're going to help MSPs, specifically with compliance with this new venture of yours?
I do have a white label program and a partner program for either referrals or for that product development side, where we can come in and start to build out the product set that comes with that GRC, with robust software platforms, along with professional services and expertise in those areas. What I've noticed over the years, especially with MSPs, is many of them will have let's call it a canned policy set. Somebody needs policies written for these assessments, or they have an assessment platform that is pretty rudimentary, but they don't often know how to use it to build an effective program that can be monetized and profitable over a long period of time, rather than just a one-off, maybe lead generation assessment. I can take those, me and my team, we can take those results and we can actually turn them into a long-term engagement that is, risk-based and customized, and, really fits the needs of the client, and, ultimately leads to more trust with the MSP.
So when MSPs are working with their customers, what kind of role should they play when it comes to compliance? Should they be like defining those policies, or what should they be doing with them? Sorry, I'm not wording that very well, but I think you know what I'm
saying. The best practice, yeah. So the best practice really is for a client to define their governance structure and their requirements, which becomes difficult. It's challenging in the SMB market, because often you have people who wear a lot of hats. You don't necessarily have a board of directors, or an IT department, or even a in-house counsel, lawyers accessible to you to help you build those structures. So what we have to do is we have to pare those down, sit with the client and say, what do you need? What does your business need? And what are your goals and objectives? And then we can do a risk assessment from there. And, when an MSP can do an effective risk assessment that is based on their client's objectives, they're better positioned to not only resolve the gaps and help address and mitigate the risks, but also to build themselves that roadmap over time that says, this is the priority. So let's say we have a 3-year contract. We can kind of predict out the projects and the super projects that are coming along with that contract, and it gives us a good way to forecast revenue over time. So it's sort of just like a winning scenario all the way around.
So what are some of the practical steps and strategies to build out that program without having to really stress a lot about compliance?
The first measure is to really get realistic and get to know your client and what it is that they are trying to achieve in their business. Oftentimes we talk about the technology, and yes, the technology is important, but sometimes we over-secure something, in spite of something else, or we under-secure something in spite of something else. When we can do a risk assessment that's based on company goals, business goals, and objectives of the client, we can be more effective in building those security programs. And what we find is that over time, the compliance piece that everybody kind of gets antsy about, it resolves itself, because you have good safeguards. Because many of the frameworks that they're looking at are they're really just asking for you to have something in place, or some rule and definition in place, not so much to do one specific thing with one specific technology. So that's the being able to conduct a really good needs analysis from a business perspective is step one. Step two is being able to conduct an effective risk assessment, agnostic of any other requirement, supply chain or compliance or what have you. And then you can kind of put the alphabet soup of frameworks into that program, and it works works every single time.
So you said that sometimes you get it wrong because you under-secure or over-secure. What are some of the other areas of compliance that MSPs tend to get wrong when servicing their customers?
The honestly, the risk assessment piece is usually the biggest. The risk assessment and the documentation. Risk assessment because oftentimes we get the compliance framework confused with the risk assessment, so we're not always looking at the correct controls. And then in the policy work, in the documentation that's required, there again is not enough definition or not enough customization. Because sometimes you can hand a client a template and say, use this and let's make this your new cybersecurity policy, let's say, and then you don't have a procedure to go along with that. And when the procedure doesn't match the policy, that's where people kind of run into the hiccups. Is in just assuming, making an assumption that because we have a policy on something that it's being done.
Yeah. So the funny thing is that there's not really a good framework for compliance, right? I think we were kind of having that conversation before. Walk us through kind of the different frameworks and the approach and like why those frameworks are not able to solve the compliance problem. And also just tell us about your favorite frameworks, because I know you know all of them.
Right. So, we have industry specific frameworks. So there are a couple of different categories, let's say. Some of them are regulatory, like HIPAA, for example. That's going to give us some good guidance on how to secure medical records. Some of them are what we call control frameworks, and those are more prescriptive. They give you a little bit more detail about what they're looking for. Under that umbrella, we have like the NIST 800-171, which is being used for CMMC. And then like the 853, and then the ISO 27001, that's the international standard. And that one comes with a certification. And then you have these programmatic frameworks that are like the NIST cybersecurity framework, or I was just thinking of one and it just completely evaded me, but the NIST cybersecurity framework is a good example of that, because it takes a lot of information and from all the best practices and the standards and kind of mixes it into this one condensed version that can be used by different companies and then interpreted based on the business. So when we're doing assessments, that one is, that's really my favorite. If there is a favorite, it's the NIST cybersecurity framework, because it's a holistic cybersecurity it's a holistic cybersecurity viewpoint, where we do have to look at, the business objectives. For example, is the first control is what is the mission statement of the business? Where are they in the supply chain? What is it that we need to be looking for? What are the attacks we should be looking for and thinking about when we do our risk assessment? The challenge with any one of these, let's take the NIST cybersecurity framework, for example, is it's not auditable. You don't call an audit firm and get a NIST certification. It's just an attestation. Maybe a third party comes in, somebody like me comes in and says, here's your posture against this one. And then the ones that are auditable are only, point in time. They're looking at, one very specific point in time, that being the case with the CMMC or the ISO 27001 or even a SOC 2. They're really just looking for, hey, where are you right now? And what evidence can you show us that you've had these things going on in the past? They're not really a predictor of the future. So when we talk about programmatic security, we might take one of these frameworks and say, this is going to be our standard. This is going to be our rule. This is what we will follow, and our policies will reflect that. But it becomes increasingly difficult to prove that you're doing that on a day-to-day basis over time, unless you have really good training and procedures to follow these new rules that you've built.
Yeah, I guess that is a big challenge in the world of compliance. Is you use the word auditable, right? Like you're not. People say, "Oh, you got to be HIPAA compliant," but that's not really a thing, right? Like you can't get a piece of paper that says, "Hi, I'm HIPAA compliant," right?
Yeah, HIPAA compliance. That's one of the things that gets the most confused, actually, in medical, is that HIPAA it is a framework. It is mandatory. It is reviewable if there's a complaint. However, there's not an audit for HIPAA. There is a high-tech audit that is technology oriented. It's the technology side of HIPAA, and that one is certifiable. You can get a full audit on that one. So usually you see HIPAA / high tech is what what the logo shows most of the time. So when you're talking certification, even even SOC 2 is not really a certification. It's an attestation. It's somebody came in and said, "Yep, that's there." Like in my opinion, as an auditor, that is there. But or CMMC, these days is the same thing. Yes, that is there from this auditor's perspective. The big one being the ISO. The international standard is that one is probably the best example of a certifiable framework, because you do get a certification that has to be maintained pretty strictly over a number of years.
So it seems like as an MSP, it's a very complicated thing to wrap your head around, compliance and regulation and all this stuff. What's the best way for them to start? Right. So let's say they're not doing anything right now. And actually, I'd be willing to bet a lot of them are not. Where do they start?
There is definitely a fear of getting into this side of the market. I think really because of the legal ramifications, the regulatory landscape and things like that. But it is becoming increasingly necessary.
Well, sure, it impacts insurance, and which everybody has to have now. So,
oh yes, yeah, exactly. So the best place really for an MSP to start is to honestly eat your own dog food. Like, what do your policies look like as an MSP, and what are the rules that you're following and the guidelines you're following, and how are you addressing your clients' needs? Because I feel like more and more, at least I'm seeing from my partners, that the MSPs are starting to get a little bit more heat for the services that they're supposed to provide. So it's how do you address this in your own house? And then how are you meeting the needs of your clients? And that doesn't necessarily have to be like a compliance, like a framework kind of issue, but more so a contractual issue, or when they get those third-party surveys from their own clients, those due diligence surveys that just keep seeming to hit them. Those are the best places to start, and then decide if that's a side of the market you want to go into, because it is profitable. It's a very good professional service, but it does require a more high touch engagement with the client. It involves a lot more relationship trust between the MSP and the client business itself.
So we know it's necessary, but right there you hit it on the head. It's difficult. It's not an easy market to enter, but it's becoming increasingly important. How do they have that conversation with their customer that they need to start looking at these? I know insurance helps. So if any customer is trying to get in cyber insurance, this is going to start a lot of those conversations. But you got to be proactive here, right? So how do they start that conversation? How do they get their customers on board with going down these paths?
If I'm looking at it, from my standpoint, I'm looking at the lower regulated financial services industry. These are your insurance brokers, maybe your mortgage brokers and title offices, where they have rules to follow, but they're not as robust as others. And there's a surprising amount of those that use MSPs, and they are a target. Their title companies are actually a big target for cyber attackers. So looking into your existing client base and looking at those verticals and seeing, first of all, do you have any of these kinds of companies? If not, what kinds of companies do you have, and what is the landscape? What is the regulatory landscape for them? And then I think that the best opportunity to introduce the conversation is during a QBR, because that's the point in time where we're sitting with them and saying, here's how we've been doing, here's what's upcoming. And then that's, an excellent opportunity to say, let's get a risk assessment done, or let's talk about your goals as a company over the next year and how we can help you achieve those. And then you can start to build that programmatic professional service that you can start to layer in pretty easily from that one conversation.
Awesome. So you said the cyber compliance group's focus and solution is labelable, if that's a term. So talk a little bit about what that solution is, because we're talking about a lot about how you got to have these conversations with customers. There's not one size fits all, but we have something that an MSP can start with. Tell us about that.
Yes. So when we white label, that really is me and my services from Cyber Compliance Group coming in and acting as an extension of the MSP company. So I currently work this way with a couple of different service providers, different kinds of service providers, not just MSPs, but it's a kind of a white glove customizable approach. So in some circumstances, I can work with the MSP company or the partner company and provide that advisory on the back end, or maybe take a look at the assessment results, or help with some of the compliance research and policy work on the back end. And then on the front end, always available to have a conversation with the client, do a discovery call. It's always the fastest way to a close, really, is when somebody who knows what they're talking about can get in front of them, and that's a good training opportunity for MSP employees, sales employees, and potential future consultants. And it comes together nicely, especially when you consider that some companies are not entirely comfortable having like an MSP that's servicing them and securing them. But sometimes when you have somebody like me who can come in from an agnostic perspective and say, this is the best thing for you, I've been able to validate other services, or justify moving budget from one area to another and assisting on that side.
Excellent. Well, it's been great having this compliance and regulatory conversation. I really appreciate you coming on, but we're not done yet. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to hit Angela up with our 3 questions segment. We're going to hit her with three pointed, interesting questions for her to tackle real quick. So we'll be doing that, and we're going to talk about. She's going to be involved with some of our events coming up in the near future. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and more. So stick around. We will be right back. And welcome back to the show. We are still joined with Angela Hogaboom from Cyber Compliance Group. She's still here with us, excited to roll into our new segment here on ChannelPro Weekly, which we call 3 questions. So we're gonna hit Angela with 3 hot take questions and kind of get her response here. We try to keep the answers somewhat concise, but we'll see what we can get here. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
She's ready. All right, here we go. Question number 1. What are the essential first steps for MSPs to help SMBs build a security program that balances business goals with compliance needs?
Step 1 is a good and solid and templated QBR process, so that you can have that conversation in the context of service, rather than trying to introduce it as a new product. It plays in as a good conversation point. And step 2 is another templated and robust and well-defined risk assessment process or product or tool that can help feed the risk data back to the client and develop that more logical remediation roadmap that can help really extend contracts and provide that layer of trust to the customer.
All right. Question number 2. How can MSPs help SMBs prioritize security initiatives based on their specific business goals and compliance needs?
Again, that one comes down to the risk assessment process and coming up with the right questions to ask by client market, meaning their vertical. I wouldn't ask certain questions about documents and contracts to a marketing company that I would ask to a hospital. So knowing the conversation to have, and then having that defined risk assessment process, where you can provide data-driven results and an opportunity to make data-driven decisions to a client, that will go a long way. Because sometimes when you say you can't get insurance if you don't do MFA here, and that's going to impact the bottom line by this many dollars, you can get to a decision point pretty quickly, as long as you have something to support it.
Absolutely. Money talks, right? Money talks.
That's right. It sure
Question
does.
number 3. What are the most critical compliance products and services MSPs should offer to SMBs to ensure regulatory readiness?
There are a host of different platforms. I work with a number of different tools and services depending on the client status and the regulatory need. I would say pick one. Look in your client base, find out where the verticals are, and then and then maybe we can have a conversation about which tools are the best for your business. But there are a number of them that can be used.
And with that, we are done with our three question segment. Thank you so much, Angela. We are going to shift gears here because I know you're involved on the cybersecurity side, but also with some of our events coming up in the near future. Why don't you tell us about what you're doing with us in New Jersey?
Yes, I will be at the Defend event in New Jersey, and I am actually joining two sessions, one being sort of the highlight session that is where myself and I will be sitting with Tyler Wrightson from Lead Security in New York, and he will be playing the hacker and I will be playing the programmatic defense. So that's going to be a really interesting session where we talk about the real world scenarios of, getting into a network and what a hacker is looking for, and then also the proactive steps that we can take in our programs to avoid them getting anything useful. I mean, the fact is they're coming anyway. So, if they get in, we want to make sure that, that they get distracted.
Well, it sounds like a really fascinating session. It really does. Probably one of the more interesting ones we've done at Defense. So it's exciting. So that is in Iselin, New Jersey, August 7th and 8th, if I remember correctly. Yep. And so folks, please go to events.channelpronetwork.com or open up the show description area in your phone, or if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put some QR codes up on the screen here. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the bell, hit subscribe, hit like, hit the comments area, there's lots of buttons and all kinds of stuff on YouTube. Hit all the buttons. We like all of those. But do that, and then go and register for the Defend event. Make it a point to be there. It's going to be a really, really great cybersecurity show. It's 2 days worth of great content. It's free for qualified attendees, and there's all kinds of incentives for you to join us. So please make sure that you do that. We also have got some other events coming up. We're rolling into Charlotte, North Carolina for our ChannelPro Live event. That is in September. We're going to be also doing that show in Dallas as well later in the year. Plus, if you can't make Defend on the East Coast, there is also now a West Coast version of ChannelPro Defend that's coming up in November in LA. Again, make it a point to join us at one or all of those. It's going to be great. We've also got online events coming up as well for those who maybe can't attend in person, but can attend from the comfort of their office and on their phone or on their computer. You don't have much to get in the way of doing those. So we've got a bunch of those coming up as well. Hit events.channelpronetwork.com and learn more about those. Also online, important for you to put into your daily internet travels is the ChannelProNetwork.com website. There we've got all kinds of news and headlines and articles and resources and white papers and all kinds of great stuff that will help you keep on top of what's going on in this crazy IT industry of ours, as well as help you grow your business as well. And we got a couple stories up right now. I'll give you a few of the headlines that are up on ChannelProNetwork.com right now. 5 tech companies aim for channel dominance. You can read their powerful pitches there. We got next generation of cybersecurity talent locked out and left behind. That was actually a really interesting read. I encourage you to check that out. And 6 ways MSPs play a critical role in SMB digital transformation. That's like, Angela, that's the tip of the iceberg. A mere taste of what is online for folks to go. And those sound like interesting stories, I'm sure, Angela.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Angela's there every day. She knows what's on there. So you can join her as well on the ChannelProNetwork.com website. Please make sure that you do that. We talked about events, but Angela, I'm sorry to say, but I think our time is over, but it was great having you on. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I did. Always, of course.
Awesome. And for those who want to learn more about Cyber Compliance Group, learn more about you, network with you, partner with you, where can they go? Where can they find you?
They can always look me up by name on LinkedIn at Angela Hogaboom, and then cybercompliancegroup.com.
Those are the places to go, folks. Check her out, and thank you again for being on. And with that, we're going to call this a wrap. What a great episode. But there's more coming down the pike, so make sure you join us next week in episode 269. Subscribe anywhere podcasts are found. We're in Spotify, we're in Stitcher, we're in Apple, we're in all of them. We're in iHeartRadio, although I hear they're not doing so well. So please go and support iHeartRadio, because that's a great great platform. And of course, we're on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe there as well. And we will see everyone in episode 269 next week. See you then.